What is up, Speezinators? I'm your host Nathan Spees, and welcome to a very special episode of the History of series. It's not a Chuck E. Cheese location history, it's not an advertising mascot history, and it's not a major or college mascot history. It's none other than a history video on a high school mascot. But not just any high school mascot, my high school mascot, Talon, the North Bullitt High School Eagle. This larger-than-life eagle holds a special place in my heart, even though I didn't like high school. He's so far the only mascot in this entire series I performed as, so I got all the inside details and info about him. But of course, as usual, he wasn't the first mascot North Bullitt had, and that's where I come in. So in this video, I will be going over not just the history of Talon, but also the history and timeline of all the Eagle mascots that came before him, even going back as far as 40 years ago. This is the history of Talon, the North Bullitt High School Eagle. So before I talk about this excellent eagle, let me go over the history of the high school he represents, North Bullitt. Now the history of North Bullitt is kind of unknown, but all I know is that North Bullitt High School first opened in August 1975, just in time for the new school year. I couldn't find who founded North Bullitt, but it was probably someone who thought that Bullitt County needed another high school. I mean, there were only 2 other high schools in the county. It is a public school located in Bullitt County and currently has just over 1,100 students enrolled. They also have many activities and programs, such as football, basketball, baseball, soccer, wrestling, bowling, and cheerleading. Who, by the way, just won a national championship, so congrats. And that's where our mascot story begins. Now I should go ahead and mention that a lot of these chapters are going to be very short, since there's barely any information on this topic. And I'm mostly going off of old NBHS yearbooks, so I may miss a few things, but just bear with me. Anyway, let's go back a little over 40 years ago to when the first mascot was spotted. So the earliest documentation of a North Bullitt mascot goes back to around 1980, as at that point the high school had already left its mark on the county. They were continuing to see success with their sports programs and other activities, but then someone realized they didn't have an Eagle mascot on the sidelines, so they ended up creating one. And the result was certainly an interesting one. This is what I believe to be the very first North Bullitt Eagles mascot. Again, there's barely any information on it, and I could only find 2 photos. The costume appears to be based off the old school Eagle logo that they used back then, but it's not entirely accurate to that design. It reminds me a lot of the original Louisville Cardinals mascot used in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Maybe someone from North Bullitt saw that costume used at a U of L game and was like, I want that as the mascot for our school. I mean, that design was retired only a few years before this eagle was created, but who knows? The head of the eagle looks to be made from paper mache, given its homemade appearance, though it could have also been fiberglass. It also looks like the eyes, feathers, and outlines have been drawn on, making him look like an illustration come to life. I'm kinda digging it. Unfortunately, since these photos are in black and white, I'm not sure what colors they used on the head. I'm not gonna say much about the body since it just looks like he's wearing a regular North Bullitt sweatshirt or football jersey. There's no photos of the lower half, but I'm guessing he probably just wore regular pants and shoes, since that was common amongst most of these types of mascots used at the time. And you know what? For a first attempt at a mascot, it's really well done. I love how he looks like an illustration, and he does indeed look like an eagle, which is something I can't say about some of these other Eagle mascots in the video. This Eagle mascot was really only used at football games, but maybe he could have been used for basketball or other sporting events. He did show up at that year's homecoming parade, which was a thing they used to do back then, but they don't do anymore. And that's it. That's all I could find on this guy. He was retired around 1981, just after the football season was over, Maybe he could have been used for smaller events afterwards, but I don't know. And for about 5 to 6 years, North Bullitt High School was without a mascot, or at least someone on the sidelines. They did still take pride into the eagle being their mascot, by having it represented everywhere from artwork on the walls of the building, to signs, to even statues and sculptures, and parade float artifacts. So even if there's no costume mascot, there's plenty of love and pride with the eagle being the mascot. And again, that classic eagle logo was still used for everything. And it's even still used to this day. It's a secondary logo. I even own a shirt with the design on it. But enough of the logo, let's jump forward to the mid-80s when the next physical eagle mascot was used. And let's just say NBHS went all out for this new mascot. Around 1986, North Bullitt gave a costumed mascot another shot, but they actually wanted to do it right this time. They wanted to do more with the eagle than they did with its predecessor, so they created a brand new eagle costume and officially adopted him as the mascot. They wanted the 1986-1987 school year to be known as the Year of the Eagle, and they definitely succeeded. Heck, the eagle's debut was already pretty crazy. What do I mean by that? Well, he was flown to the school in a helicopter. That's right, a helicopter, just for this new eagle mascot. The 80s were certainly a crazy era. Like, I don't think they would let this fly today. As for the costume itself, it was definitely an improvement over the last version, in that it actually looked like a real mascot and not an art project. The head still had that ferocious eagle look, but this time it's covered in brown fur, and the beak is yellow. The head also might have been lighter in weight due to it being kinda small. I believe the performer inside looked through the mouth. The body received a major upgrade. It kept the traditional North Bullitt sweatshirt seen on the logo, but now the eagle has a furry lower half with a large tail. And finally it features yellow tights with traditional sneakers. Unlike the last version, I actually found out who portrayed this version of the eagle mascot. The first person to play this new eagle mascot was someone named Mrs. Beverly, who I'm guessing was a teacher or administrator, since I couldn't find her in any yearbooks I looked through. Another person to play the eagle mascot was a student by the name of Matt Glass, and he was the primary mascot who did it from 1986 to 1987. There could have been more, but those two are the only named eagle mascot performers I could find in the yearbooks. For the following school year, aka 1987 to 1988, the eagle mascot returned, but this time with a new look. While he still looked the same, the colors have been changed. The brown parts of his body are now green. This includes the head, legs, and tail. He still kept the same sweatshirt and shoes, but I'm now just realizing he never wore gloves. Despicable. But this design I would say is a welcome change to the last design. Sure, eagles aren't green, but you can definitely take some creative liberties here and there. And well, green and gold are the school's colors. Since North Bullitt was taking mascots seriously now, this eagle mascot got to do more things than any other NBHS mascot has ever done, even to this day. I already mentioned the time he rode in a helicopter, but he also started attending other events like the homecoming parade, local community events, and even away games, which again is something the current mascot doesn't even do. Speaking of games, I can now definitively say he started attending basketball games. He was also popping up at pep rallies and assemblies held at the school. They even let him join in the basketball team photo shoot. Not football for some reason, even though that one would make more sense. Around this time, the eagle may or may not have gotten a name, Spirit. I say may or may not because I found a page of the 1988 yearbook full of photos of this mascot, and the only word on that page is Spirit. Is that the name of the mascot? I think it might be, but I'm still going to call him the Eagle. On the topic of names, I did manage to find out who one of these Eagles performers was. Multiple students played the mascot, but only one that was named was a student named Kevin Higdon. He played the mascot throughout the 1987-1988 season. Also, on a side note, some of these older yearbook covers had these really weird anthropomorphic humanoid eagles on them. Like, seriously, what is up with those eagle designs? Especially the really pixelated ones from the 1997 yearbook. Man, those things look weird. As the early 90s came around, North Bullitt High School was still using this Eagle mascot for all games and events he attended. Unfortunately, around 1993, the green and gold eagle was retired, and the school once again became mascotless. But then something weird happened. During the 1996-1997 school year, the Eagle mascot was resurrected, but it wasn't the green and gold version of the mascot, but rather the original brown-colored eagle last seen in 1987. That's right, he's back, but it's probably the laziest mascot I've seen in years. Like, it's literally just a normal dude with only the eagle head and football shoulder pads on. Though I did see this photo where he does appear to be wearing brown on his arms. The eagle for the 1996-1997 school year was a senior student named Brett Haven. And you've probably guessed this by now, but North Bullitt doesn't really care about character integrity. You see, unlike colleges or theme parks, high schools don't really care about others finding out who plays the mascot. You can tell pretty much anyone that you play the mascot. Now, this doesn't apply to all schools, but a majority of them don't do character integrity. Now, whether or not that's a bad thing depends on you. After 1997, this Eagle mascot was officially retired, and once again the school had no mascot for about 6 years. But just after the new millennium, aka the 2000s, a new NBHS mascot was created, but this one wasn't as popular as the green and gold eagle. Beginning around the 2003-2004 school year, another North Bullitt mascot was introduced. This one, who I've nicknamed the generic eagle, is unlike any other NBHS mascot. He's no longer green, and he's not wearing any clothes. Instead, it's just a generic-looking eagle that happens to cheer for North Bullitt. But besides not being as cool as the last eagle, that's not to say this version is bad. It's a nice-looking costume and looks more professional and less homemade. Talking about his design, again very basic and very generic. It's just a normal looking bald eagle. I will say that this is the first NBHS mascot that's a proper bald eagle, not counting the logo of course. The other mascots were either brown or green, but this one is white and brown, unless the first mascot had a white head. A cool thing about this mascot is that now instead of the body being represented by regular clothes, it's now a full fur-covered body with small white wings, though sadly he's still not wearing any gloves, or any kind of hand coverings. He's also not wearing any leg details, but instead it's just a pair of boots. And let me just say, that face is not good. It looks a little too hairy, and the eyes are too small, and spaced apart in a weird way. At least the beak is decent. This Eagle mascot wasn't used as much as other versions given how there's barely any photos of him. He was probably only used for football games, maybe basketball, but who knows. What I do know is that he did make some smaller appearances like at a local elementary school to read to kids. And on one instance, he rode a freaking donkey. Okay, I take back everything negative I said about this guy. How can I criticize a mascot that's riding a jackass? Anyway, this eagle was played by a junior student named Clint Cecil, or at least he was the guy who rode the donkey. I'm not sure if he was the main eagle mascot, but I want to believe he did. But there were other students to play this eagle. And that's all I could really find on this mascot. He came and went and was gone by 2005. North Bullitt High School was once again left without a mascot. It would stay like that for 10 years. But I think I know why they didn't have a mascot for 10 years. You see, North Bullitt had started a massive renovation in 2005, which would completely overhaul the school. They added a second level to the existing building, renovated the gymnasium, and added a new expansion area of the school. The whole renovation took them from 2005 all the way to 2014, and I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but I couldn't find any archived NBHS yearbooks from 2006 to 2014. And obviously, with their top priorities being the remodel, they didn't care about having a mascot costume, since that would cost them a lot of money, at least for a professional suit. They could have had a mascot between the years 2006 and 2014, but I just wouldn't know, since I can't find anything in those years online. But finally, in 2014, renovations were complete and everything was back to normal. They also changed their logo to a logo that just looks like a modified version of the Philadelphia Eagles logo. And for the following school year, they finally decided to reintroduce a mascot to their sports games. But this one I would call the complete opposite of professional. Around 2015, just after renovations were complete, North Bullitt once again tried out a mascot, but this one didn't go over too well, and that's because, well, just look at what they created.
Holy Jesus! What is that?
Seriously, who thought this was a good idea? I would have to assume it's homemade, because no mascot company would make a suit this awful looking. Like, I don't even know where to start with this thing. It's absolutely hideous, and easily one of the worst mascot costumes I've ever seen that's been created. Okay, I've ranted enough. Let's go over why this costume is so bad. Starting with the head. Yikes. Did the person who created this not know what an eagle looks like? The head is extremely lumpy, and don't even get me started on the mouth. That beak is way too skinny, and the bottom jaw isn't even a part of the beak. It's like this eagle has no bottom jaw. And look how wide open his mouth is. And the screen inside is so thin you can very easily see the person inside. The eyes are also far too realistic and creepy. The back of his head is just as bad, if not worse. My dude literally has a hole in the top of his head. At least he's got feather details on the back of his neck. The only saving grace with this costume is the body, as it actually looks good. It's the proper colors and appears well made. He's got actual wings now, with white details on the tips and a large white tail. Sadly, he's got no gloves, just bare human skin. Although in this photo, he's actually wearing gloves and a jersey. And finally, he's got no leg detail again. It's just bare human skin with regular tennis shoes. I know I keep repeating myself, but I still can't get over how awful this thing looks. Like, how can a costume made in 2014 or 15 look worse than mascot suits from the 50s and 60s? Hell, even bootleg Eagle Mascot costumes from China look better than this. I get they spent a lot of money refurbishing the building, but still, mascot suits aren't that expensive. Were they just in a financial crisis at that time? Despite how terrible this costume looked, it was popular amongst the student population. Maybe his looks played a factor into this. He actually got to attend a few events other than football games, like this one where he fought the Bullitt East mascot. And if anyone's wondering, no, I'm not doing history videos on Bullitt East or Bullitt Central's mascots, because those two schools can go stuff a stocking. Anyway, throughout most of this mascot's existence, he was played by a girl. I actually think this mascot was one of the cheerleaders, and was a part of their squad, although he was played by dudes for some events. My sister actually saw this mascot in person, since she went to North Bullitt before I did. Though it must not have been much, since she didn't really mention it, but with a face like that you would probably try to forget about him too. After 2016, this ugly eagle was mostly retired. He may have popped up a few times after, but he was mostly gone. Maybe he fell apart. North Bullitt pretty much swept him under the rug soon after, and acted like they never had that mascot. I started going there in 2018, and not once was a mascot ever brought up. In 2019, I started my sophomore year, but little did I or anyone else know that a few months prior, a certain someone would be making a grand return. Shortly before the 2019-2020 school year, North Bullitt posted on their athletic Twitter page asking for people interested in being the Eagle mascot for the season. However, since it was still summer break for Bullitt County, this post was largely forgotten about, and only a few people actually saw it. It wasn't until school started again that this info was given out to students. They hadn't shown the costume off to the public yet, so no one knew what they were going to do for a costume, unless you were actually in charge of the costume. I doubt they wanted this freak of nature to come back, if he was even still around. The brand new Eagle Mascot costume debuted on September 6, 2019 at North Bullitt's home opener football game against Bullitt East. He was officially revealed on the WHAS 11 news channel during their pre-game coverage of the game. It was also on here that a poll to name the mascot was announced. You see, at the time, the Eagle mascot did not have a name, so a few days before the game, members of the school's athletic department went around asking people what they should name the mascot, and they came up with 4 names. Those names being Baldwin, Aries, Talon, and Freedom. And you could go on Twitter to vote on which name they should call him. As you guys could probably guess, they chose the name that's the title of this video, Talon. Although many were expecting him to be named Freedom, including the news anchor. A week after his debut, North Bullitt made a video exclusively for students and staff that introduced Talon to the rest of the school. You see, NBHS always did these videos that would be shown at the start of the school day every month or so, that would serve as a way to announce anything major, like events or testing. Well, in this one video, they dedicated a portion of it to Talon. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the video anymore, but I do remember everything that happened in it. The video gave out some additional information on Talon, like how they spent a year doing several fundraisers to get enough money to purchase the costume. They also mentioned that Talon was actually at the school in May 2019, as proven by this photo found on Facebook. It then ended with Talon's name reveal, and a teacher then randomly tackled the mascot and took his head off and ran into a random classroom wearing the head. Don't worry, the person in the costume wasn't hurt. It was all in good fun. Speaking of people, when Talon first debuted, there were about 3 to 4 people to play him, but quickly it was down to just 1. And I'll tell you guys who that was later on. But for now, let's go talk about the costume itself. Unlike the other costumes, Talon actually has a company attached to his creation. He was designed by the company called Face Makers Incorporated, who is a company that mostly makes mascot suits for small companies as well as high schools and colleges, but they have done several famous characters. These include Tony the Tiger, the Best Buy mascot, Smokey the Bear, and apparently according to their website, they did some mascot suits for Disney, though I couldn't find which characters they did. So depending on how you look at it, Talon is canonically a Disney character. Talon is actually a variation of Facemaker's standard Eagle mascot costume known as the Deluxe Eagle. If your local high school or college had an Eagle mascot, they may have actually used this mascot. Heck, even Kevin Hart wore a very similar Eagle costume in a mascot video he did a while back. Starting with the head, it's no competition Talon has the best head out of any other Eagle mascot in this video. It's a hard plastic or foam material, making it very durable, and you look through his eyes and mouth. Speaking of his eyes, the normal Eagle suit has yellow eyes, but North Bullitt requested they give him green eyes, which he has. He also has 2 elastic bands on his head that go under your arms. And no, he has no fan or ventilation, though they were originally going to give him one. As for his body, it's just a basic brown furry jumpsuit with a large white foam tail. His wings are honestly kinda underwhelming. They're not bad, they're just kinda boring. Like, as much as I hate the last mascot suit, it did have some cool wing details. Maybe they should have added white details on the ends of the wings. At least he has hands now, which are connected to the bodysuit and were basically like Barney the dinosaur's hands, since it was just one big finger and a thumb. There were also holes under the hands that were for your hands to go through to help hold things better. Finally, his legs were just a pair of yellow tights, and his feet were just shoe covers that had elastic on the bottom and Velcro in the back. Oh yeah, I forgot, he wears a green football jersey with the number 70 on it. Now why that number? Well, it's because that was just a random jersey thrown on him last minute. Talon was received very well amongst the general public along with students and staff. He got to attend many events, not just football games, but also basketball games, trunk or treat, a Christmas event with Santa Claus, and he even got to go to Bullitt Central High School for a cheer competition. Speaking of Bullitt Central, Talon actually won the Bullitt County Mascot Dance-Off held in 2019. But little did Talon or anyone else know that going into 2020, Talon's future was about to be changed forever. In early 2020, just after basketball season ended, the COVID-19 pandemic happened. While at first, schools continued to operate normally, by March 2020 COVID was getting worse, and eventually they all had to close temporarily, including North Bullitt. Thankfully, most of the major sports seasons had already ended, so Talon got off without injury. However, now he was pretty much retired, for now, since there were no more in-person events, and school was now held online. Fast forward to the 2020-2021 school year, and now almost everything is back open, and sports games are back at NBHS. Sadly, Talon was not a part of anything, since he wasn't seen as a necessary part of the game. I and other people just believed Talon was permanently retired, and that COVID killed him off, and he would never come back. But then, in 2021, as the next school year started, all sports activities and events started to return, and that included Talon. Talon made his grand return to North Bullitt football games on September 17th, 2021. He was back and better than ever, though a little rusty at times due to being in quarantine for over a year. He was once again welcomed with open arms, but didn't get as much attention as he did his rookie year. However, he wasn't quite as active as before because he only ever did one football game. He did go to an event at Skaterama, which is a local roller skating rink. No, he did not skate. And that brings us to today. As of March 2023, Talon's last appearance that I know of was in February 2022, on senior night, at the last basketball game of the season. I have no clue if North Bullitt has still been using him for events and games. I couldn't find anything on him from this school year, so there's a chance he's retired. I do hope they are still using him. I do request you guys please do not bother anyone who works for North Bullitt or harass anyone over bringing Talon back. It's their choice if they want to use him. Really, I think any current or future NBHS students should consider the idea of playing Talon. You won't regret it. I certainly didn't. That's right. Just like I said at the beginning of this video, I actually performed as Talon throughout my high school years, and I ultimately ended up being the only one who portrayed him at the end of the season. And maybe the last, depending on if they retired him or not. And since I played Talon the longest, I've got some stories to tell about all the things I did as my favorite Eagle. So strap in, because here are some of my memories from my time as Talon the North Bullitt Eagle. So let's go back to the very beginning of this adventure, aka when they first announced they needed people to play the mascot. I remember sitting in class kinda in shock, and immediately I had to find out how to get in contact with the people in charge. I waited till I got home, and that's when I discovered that one of my special ed teachers was actually the wife of the athletic director, aka the guy in charge of finding mascot performers. So I contacted her through email, and she helped me contact the director. Unlike other mascot jobs, or most other high school or college mascots, there were no tryouts or auditions. I was given the mascot position on the spot. Of course, my entire family was ecstatic and acted like I won the lottery, which I guess I kinda did. My first game was on September 20th, 2019, but it wasn't until a few days before that I learned about the costume itself. You see, I thought that they were going to bring back the older, ugly Eagle suit. I had no idea they got a new outfit. It wasn't until I saw him on NBHS 11 that I learned about the new mascot suit, which again was way better than the other one. While my first game was on a Friday, on Tuesday I was pulled out of class to go try on the costume, and I went into the cafeteria to do a cheer. I guess that was my audition. On Friday, before the football game, I did a pep rally. Well, the first half, someone else did the last half. If you want to see my first football game performance, check out the video links in the description. For the most part, I didn't really do much during the football games, probably because I was only allowed in a small gravel area in front of the bleachers. I never went on the actual football field, not even when I was out of costume for gym class or something. I also didn't go on the track separating the field and gravel, since there was a fence, even though the cheerleaders were allowed on the track. I danced, cheered, ran around, took pictures with people, scared kids, all the typical mascot stuff. I had to be careful since people were constantly walking around me. I barely went over to the students section since they were trying to harass me by wanting me to take my head off or talk. They also thought that I was one of the other Talon performers. They didn't know it was me. And finally, after every successful performance as Talon, I would go over to the ice cream truck they had parked by the football field and buy the legendary Sonic ice cream bar. My first basketball game as Talon was on December 3rd, 2019, and I pretty much did all the same things I did for football, but indoors, and that's why I like doing those over football games. It was also at this point I was the only person playing the mascot. I have some cool memories from doing basketball, like I was pretending to conduct the band, going into the bleachers to mess with students, and during my first game, I got to go out onto the court and dance during halftime. Check out the video link in the description for the whole video of that experience. My favorite experience when playing Talon was when I got to hang out with the Chick-fil-A cow, since that was the only time I got to interact with another mascot as a mascot, which is something I've wanted to do for a while. As for events I did as Talon, these include Trunk or Treat for Halloween, a Christmas tree festival I did with Santa Claus, which is another favorite thing I did as Talon. And by the way, that guy that played Santa was also someone who would play Talon from time to time. I also did an event at the nearby Freedom Elementary School. It wasn't anything special, just a small assembly to get elementary students ready for high school. Everyone absolutely loved my performance as Talon. I was even called the best mascot performer NBHS ever had. I also got an award for my role as Talon. I think a month or so after that event was when COVID struck and shut everything down, and during COVID I switched over to online school, and I would continue to do that until my senior year. I never did go back to in-person school. I was still considered a North Bullitt High School student, so I could still do Talon when and if he came back. Again, throughout the 2020-2021 school year, he didn't come back, but I was always ready if they needed him. I even made him his own Instagram account that year, though sadly it's now deleted. Finally, during the next year, I came back to play Talon during one, and only one, football game. I didn't do many games during that school year since I was busy doing other things. I also did Trunk or Treat that year, which was probably another favorite experience I had. Well, except for the part where a group of teens kept harassing me, or when a lady wanted me to hold her baby. I also only did one basketball game, which was my last game ever as Talon, and I was honored that night since it was senior night, and I was of course a senior about to graduate. And that was my, and probably everyone else's, last time ever seeing Talon. Unless again, he's still being used. Last but certainly not least, I have some general information to tell you guys about Talon, aka things that I didn't know where to put in this video, so I'm putting them right here. First, I know you guys want to see me suit up as Talon. but sadly, I never did record me dressing up as him. That's something I wish I did, but I can at least tell you how he was assembled. First, you put on the yellow tights. They're just like any other pair of tights. Then you put on the brown bodysuit and zip up the back. And fun fact, I accidentally broke the zipper when I first tried on the costume, since it got stuck in the fur. So during his entire rookie season, we had to safety pin the back together. After COVID, they added a huge heavy-duty zipper to the back. Next, the jersey slides on, and then the feet covers go on. Once again, another fun fact, during my last year, someone accidentally threw away Talon's feet, so I had to make do with my normal shoes. Finally, the head goes on, and there's no helmet inside, but there's elastic straps that go under your arms. Once that's done, congratulations! You are now Talon the NBHS Eagle. Next are some miscellaneous things to mention. I didn't agree with how they handled the costume. They didn't completely destroy him, but he was rarely ever washed, so sometimes he would smell fine, but other times, man, he stunk. Also, the way they stored him after appearance was pretty bad. He was originally kept in a cardboard box, then a plastic container, but then they decided to put him in a straight-up garbage bag. It's like they didn't really care about this expensive costume they just bought. I don't know why they never did buy a storage bag or container for him, but whatever. Finally, he was constantly having to go to different areas to change in and out of the costume. For the most part, he would change in the athletic office, and occasionally in the football player locker room, or the teacher's lounge. Then after COVID, he was moved to the baseball locker room for football games and trunk or treat. And for basketball, he just changed out in the middle of the front office, which was pretty awkward at times. Lastly, I want to take this time to thank everyone at North Bullitt High School who allowed me to perform as Talon the mascot. That eagle changed my life. Before him, I considered dropping out of school, or just switching to homeschooling, since public school was too much for me. But then Talon came around, and made me want to stay. I will never forget Talon, and I do hope he's still being used, and not just rotting away in a garbage bag or a dumpster. And while I don't have the costume in my possession, I do have his basketball jersey and never used feet still with me. And of course all the memories. And with that, this concludes the history of Talon. And there you have it, the history of my high school mascot Talon the North Bullitt Eagle. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was certainly an interesting topic to discuss and research. I never thought about doing a video on Talon, but I'm glad I did. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below what was your favorite Eagle mascot. Or maybe any questions you have about Talon that wasn't answered in the video. And again, just to clarify, I'm not doing any other high school mascots in this series. I made an exception for Talon since he's my high school mascot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the History of series. Bye-bye!
J Squad!